Hi everybody, this is Alex, and today I just kind of want to do a little bit of a final impressions on Ghost of Tsushima here. I've played through the game, I've gotten most of the trophies. I don't have the platinum yet, but I'm like 3 trophies away from the platinum, so I think I've explored enough of the game to have a good idea of how I feel about it. And now I just sort of want to tell you guys about how I feel about it, because I am huge on open world games. I'm big on these action adventure, kind of stealth, combat, blah 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 type hybrid games that are really popular right now. And Ghost of Tsushima is obviously mimicking a very common gameplay style that we see all the time right now. And I want to talk about how well I feel it does a lot of those things. So right now I just sort of have a waypoint that is pointing to the complete opposite end of Tsushima Island here in the game, and I'm going to go towards that waypoint, and I'm going to talk about the game as I go. So I'm going to try to talk about most aspects of the game: combat, world exploration, stealth, story, presentation, all that kind of stuff. But to begin with, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the presentation of the game. So the presentation is pretty darn impressive. The graphics obviously are probably the thing that are going to stand out the most when talking about the presentation in this game, because this is one of those games where pretty much no matter where you are, if you take a screenshot, it's going to look good, like almost invariably. So you could be in any part of the wilderness, you could be in any settlement, and you take a screenshot and you're pretty much going to find something good looking. So it's not just a matter of necessarily how realistic the graphics are in this game, because most stuff is pretty realistic, but there's also sort of an exaggeration. There's a style to it. It's not completely, oh, look how photorealistic this is. There's a very strong level of style in the game's visuals. The exaggeration of how fields and forests look, for instance, is where it's going to stand out the most, because when you're in a town, most of the towns are going for a much more realistic... Why am I doing that? That's the wrong one. That's the right one. Okay. That's controls. We're going to talk about controls later, so don't worry, we're going to get into that. But for now, the towns that you're in most of the time look pretty realistic. They're going for a realistic style, and they look good, but there's usually not much embellishment in the towns. And when I say embellishment in the towns, you have some games where when they are technically trying to be realistic, they still exaggerate a little bit based on real life, because they still want it to be impressive. And fully realistic building sizes, fully realistic building layouts, and the sizes of towns aren't necessarily always impressive in games. But, well, no, I couldn't say that about the size of towns, because those would always be impressive in games. But this game does do that typical thing that open world games do, where the towns and settlements, etc., are usually much smaller than they would actually be in real life. So you don't really have any overly large cities that you're going to see. The largest places in the game tend to be like 10 buildings maximum in one settlement, and that's pretty much it. But as far as the wilderness goes, as you see me riding through this forest here at nighttime, most games I like to play during the day because I like to be able to see stuff, I like to be able to see what's going on, but this is one of the few games where I truly do enjoy nighttime gameplay, because I really do feel like the game looks particularly better at nighttime. The contrast of the world, like all these shadows and stuff, just looks stunningly amazing. The lighting in this game, the contrast that you have is just stupid. It's beautiful. And yes, most games do look... I keep doing the wrong controls. I am so... played this game so little in the past week or so that I've gotten unused to the controls again. But I digress. The contrast of the shadows and the lighting in this game just make it look really, really freaking good. But you do have to worry about the fact that a lot of the time you're still going to have a hard time navigating at nighttime, especially out here in the wilderness. Where's my horse? Initially I started the game with the white horse that it allows you to get, but if you've been through part of the game, you know that eventually your horse gets killed and you have to choose a new horse. So I chose the black horse for my second horse. You can see that in some of my previous gameplay videos that are hosted on this channel as well. But never mind that. Let's continue to talk a little bit about the presentation of the game. So, one thing I really like about this game are the animations. The character animations are really, really nice. A lot of the times, games like this, when it has this combat system where it's like light and heavy attacks, a lot of the time it'll look really janky. I totally dodged that. But this game manages to look really good when you're in combat. The animations can be a little bit silly sometimes, like the actual attacks that they're doing can be a little bit silly sometimes. I might be able to show some of those attacks off that I'm not fond of. I thought I switched my attack pattern for him. I guess not. Some of the attacks do look a little bit silly and unrealistic. Like, these strikes look fine. But even though they're technically supposed to be quick attacks, they're pretty slow. Oh, shoot, I forgot to save the civilian. Where are you at? Oh, there you are. Sorry, ma'am. But for the most part, the animations are pretty good. There's a little bit of stiltedness in some of the animations when you're like platforming, jumping and climbing, etc. Those can be a little bit awkward looking. But for the most part, they look really good. The music in the game is incredible. I know that I've said before that the graphics were the best part of the presentation, but the music is still very close. See, like this right here, this doesn't necessarily look very realistic, but it still looks close enough to real, and it looks amazing, so it's fine. I'm not looking for it to be super realistic because this game overall, in terms of the world that it's built, is not exactly overly realistic, so it's not really much of a contrast. I guess that's another thing we could get into. Like I said, the music, stupid amazing. Sound effects are pretty good. The voice acting is pretty good. Talking about a little bit of the presentation mixed with the story, we'll talk about the world building. This game does a very effective job at making you feel like you're in 13th century Japan, even though a lot of the stuff is technically anachronic. Is not approved. Even though a lot of the stuff is anachronistic, such as haikus didn't exist when this game takes place. Katana did not exist, or at least they weren't common yet. Samurai were more likely to use nodachi at this point, I think. Also, samurai were typically more... No, they weren't using nodachi. They were using like naginata or other long weapons, you know, other Japanese equivalents of a spear type weapon. So there's a little bit of anachronism in this game, but that's fine. I mean, they're going for an aesthetic that a lot of people are more familiar with when it comes to samurai and medieval Japan, so I'm not upset with them for throwing in some stuff that's not exactly realistic in terms of when it takes place or whatever, but I wouldn't expect that, just like I wouldn't expect, you know... Ow. Well, I can't say that I've seen a Western equivalent of this game, because this game is pretty much an pretty much a... I mean, it's not really an RPG. It has RPG elements, but, you know, it's not similar to a Skyrim. Skyrim is in its own world, and, you know, a constructed world that people made up for that series. So they can have anachronisms because it's not actually our world. So to put stuff that wouldn't exist alongside each other in our history doesn't cause a problem because it's not our history, whereas this game does take place in our history. The only game I can think of that's like a Western medieval game that's not going for fantasy is like, what was that game called? The one that takes place in like Kingdom Come of Deliverance, that's what it's called. Kingdom Come of Deliverance is going for a realistic depiction of Western history, European history, and it manages to not make much of an anachronism stew. Whereas this game certainly does. He did not hit me that time. I totally dodged that one. Whatever. There's no anti-bear stance. Need an anti-bear stance. Come here, Kage. Where are you at? There you are. Yeah, my first horse was the white one, and I named it Sky. I forget what the name was in Japanese, though. More boars or bears? Boars, good. So it's not really a problem I've encountered in the game before, you know, slight anachronism stew in order to make a realistic aesthetic for a certain technically real setting, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. If you're a big Japanese history buff, you probably know that going in the game, so you shouldn't be bothered by it. But if you want to take points off the game for that, fine, I get it, you know. Little bit of anachronism can be annoying if you're that big of a history buff. It's certainly noticeable if you know about it, but it's not a big deal. In terms of the rest of the world building, though, you know, I already talked about the size of settlements and stuff not being realistic, but I kind of expected that. Another problem that I don't like about the world building is that there really aren't... I cannot believe I did that so poorly. Wow. Well, at least these guys are all using pretty much the same weapon, so I can take them down pretty easily without having to switch stances too much. Which, I guess, well, there's some more I want to talk about the world itself, but I don't want to get into that while I'm out here in the random wilderness. I want to talk about that kind of stuff when I can actually show you the points that I want to make. So right now, I could probably talk about the combat. Now, the combat in this game is great, but it's also problematic. To start off, in order to explain... I pushed the wrong button again. In order to explain the combat in the quickest way I can, if you have played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, this game follows that game almost perfectly in terms of how the combat works. There are, you know, other things that change it around so it's its own thing, but the base structure skeleton underneath the combat in this game is identical to Fallen Order. So if you played that game, you sort of know what to expect. A lot of the buttons are the same. You have square for light attack, which doesn't do a heck of a lot of damage, but you can do them quickly. I'm gonna swim through this river. You have triangle for heavy attacks that are very slow, but they also help to break an opponent's block a lot more efficiently. You have circle for dodge, double tap circle to roll. You have X to jump, and you have L1 to block. Obviously, you don't have force abilities, but that's where the two games sort of diverge in terms of what you can do during combat. So for the most part, the base controls are pretty simple. You know, you tap L1 at the right time in order to properly block an attack, and you'll get like a perfect parry or whatever, which will open up your enemy to a counter attack, which is always fun. Very satisfying. You have your dodges that can also be performed perfectly. Whenever you see an enemy with like red energy on their hands, that means you can't block an attack, so you have to dodge it. And that can be done perfectly. I don't remember what the benefit for doing a dodge perfectly is, but it, you know, it gives you a little bit more time, I guess. I forget, because I can't ever actually properly do it. I'm really bad at dodging in this game. You'll probably see I'm not too bad at parrying, but I'm terrible at dodging in this game. Mainly because I usually just immediately try to parry every attack I see, even if it's got the red energy glowing. So I really need to perfect my dodging for that purpose, but I digress. So in this game, some of the things that are different about the combat are, for one, you don't have a camera lock, and that is incredibly annoying. In fact, it's probably one of my very biggest criticisms in this game, is that there's no camera lock. You know what? I'm going to actually change my objective where I'm heading, because I want to show you guys some things like the towns and such, and I don't necessarily have one on the path that I'm following right now. So how about, is there, well, there's not much of a major town. Actually, this is another complaint I can tell you about once we get to a town, but there's no real major towns in either the second or third act of the game, because the game is divided into acts based on which section of the island you're on. These 3-section divisions you can see here on the map. And the second and third acts of the game, the second and third areas in the map, are pretty much devoid entirely of large towns. Like I said, there's no true cities at all, but even large towns are incredibly rare beyond the first area of the island, which is pretty disappointing in my opinion. That was one of the things I was most interested to see. I wanted to see how they could recreate ancient Japanese urban environments. I know that this isn't Assassin's Creed, but you know, that's one of my favorite things when I'm exploring a historical fiction game, is I want to see and know what those cities were like by playing the game to some degree. Like, I want to go into... I don't know what cities were... I don't know what big cities there were in Japan during this time, but I don't think there were really any big cities in Tsushima, at least. But on mainland Japan, there must have been some big cities, right? Here you can see an indoor environment, but I'm going to go see some more indoor environments later, so... There, I finally did it. Clean your sword. No, don't crawl. I wanted to pick up the thing that the guy had. Nope, I can't pick it up anyways because I have full whatever it is, smoke bombs. Why is the music not going away? Are there still more bad guys? Yeah, there are. Okay. I hear him shouting. Where are they at? Oh, he's inside. Okay, cool. So that's a little bit of the stealth. I'll show you more stealth later, but like most of these games, you have your little aura vision where you can see where enemies are through walls and stuff. Okay. This place is clear. Throw the blood off your sword. We're going to continue towards Komatsu town so I can show you a few more things like the cities in the game and stuff like that. But continuing to talk about the combat a little bit, I know that I went on a huge tangent there, but the camera in combat is so annoying because it has no transparency layer. So if anything gets between the character and the camera, you can't see yourself. Like this tree right here, for some reason I can't see through it. The camera it's just in the way. That's it. And that happens plenty during combat, so you won't know what's going on, but of course the enemies, they don't have to worry about a player being able to see them, so they can always see what's happening, and they can always attack you or do whatever they're trying to do. So your enemies are at a massive advantage in that way. Somebody left a treasure chest out here. Nope, they were waiting for me. I should have known. These are just bandits, I think, though. Yeah. But, obviously fighting enemies out here in the wide open, not a problem. But when you're fighting enemies in a small area, or you have an area where there are a lot of trees and other things that can get in your way, they will get in your way invariably, and it causes a lot of problems. Throw this blood off my sword. You can also do this. You can bow at any time, including to enemies or friendlies or corpses, and Jin will actually react differently depending on what you bow to. Nope. Nope. See, I keep pushing all the wrong buttons. There are a lot of confusing controls in this game, because you have two... Kage. Kage. There you are. Okay. Why is it so dim out? It should be daytime. You have two directional inputs. You have your directional buttons, which allow you to call your horse, or to activate photo mode, or to heal, or to activate a standoff. And then you have the touchpad swipe, and the touchpad swipe allows you to call the wind, it allows you to play your flute, draw or sheath your sword, and it allows you to bow. So remembering which thing you have to use to do those functions is always a bit of a pain. Where's this bird going? I should have everything. Unless it's leading me to a side quest, which I already have most of the side quests marked on the map. Yep, it's a side quest. I don't care about Susano. I'm not really interested in the mythic tales. I'll probably do those at some point, but I'm a very basic player when it comes to how I do combat in this game. I usually just go for standard blocks and attacks, and if I feel really, really threatened, I'll use a kunai, and that's about it. So I'm pretty simple. So here we have one of the major towns in the game, probably the biggest town in the game as well, if not the most interesting, because I wouldn't say it is the most interesting, but this is Komatsu town, and as you can see, it's obviously been assaulted. Hey look, there's a... Oh no, it's a cow. I thought it was a white horse. Never mind. This way, Gene. I'll show you a little bit more of the controls and how the game works, and tell you some more of my complaints about that, because I certainly have a lot more complaints about the controls in this game. That's probably my biggest complaint, because the way that the buttons are laid out is incredibly deep, and it takes a long time to get used to, and it can still be confusing. You know, besides just having your different touch and directional button inputs, you also have two different ways of switching ranged weapons. So you have holding R2, which allows you to change your sword stance. I wonder if somebody can make a song out of those. Yeah, you can like make a song out of those sounds. Okay, sorry. Got a little carried away with playing around there. But you also have your tools, which you switch with the directional pad while you're in your R2 button. Right now I'm holding R2 in order to activate this. Now R2 is not just for activating your stance and ghost tool switching menu, I think this is called. It's also how you interact with the world. So to get onto your horse, to talk to civilians, all that kind of stuff, you press R2. In order to climb under gaps in buildings that you find laying around, you press R2. It's a little frustrating that everything is done with the R2 button in that way. And then, in order to switch your actual ranged weapons, you hold L2. You can switch between your half bow, your long bow, your blowgun, and your thrown weapons. But you also have on the right side there, if you're on your half bow, you can switch between your flaming arrows and your standard arrows by pressing face buttons. If you're on your longbow, you can switch between explosive and heavy arrows with your face buttons. If you're on your thrown weapons, you switch between your varieties of thrown items with your face buttons. If you're on your blowgun, you switch with your face buttons while you're holding... It's just a mess. There's so many controls for everything, and everything does so many things. And it really takes a long time to get used to it. It can be a pain, for sure. And it's one of the main reasons why I don't use most of my items during gameplay, because everything's mapped to the same button, and you always have to change around and change back and switch between and all that stuff to use all your different tools, that I just don't feel like doing that during combat. You know, I just keep I usually keep one of my two bows equipped for long distance, and then I keep my kunai equipped for melee, and then whenever I'm actually doing stealth of any sort, I switch over to my thrown weapons and use my wind chimes or my firecrackers. The black powder bombs almost never get used. The blowgun almost never gets used. My smoke bombs and sticky bombs, they almost never get used, because just switching around everything like that is just incredibly inconvenient, and I don't like doing it. Especially when it's good enough to just go up to your enemies, pick the correct stance, and attack them that way. Switching stances really does seem like it's enough of a mechanic to carry you through most of the gameplay, where, like I said, Star Wars has the force powers, and learning to use your force powers alongside your lightsaber in order to combat enemies properly, as well as, you know, of course, dodging and attacking at the right times, was enough of a combat system that I felt like it was competent. I feel like this game is enough of a competent combat system simply by having the stance switching. See, like I came into these random people's house, right? I can bow to them, see if they'll... Nope. Are they going to bow back to me? Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, your knee hurts? Poor guy. Whatever. They're not going to bow to me. I need to go see the trapper over there, because I can upgrade my fire arrow pouch. I think it's fire arrow pouch I'm upgrading, right? Should be. Because I got my fire arrows super late. Like, I was already done with, like, like over 80% of the content before I unlocked fire arrows. Because you have to do that you would get the fire arrows from. But yeah, so the controls are a pain in this game. I also need... What do you call it? The gift altar. Next, we can sort of talk about the urban environments in the game. So as you can see here, we are in, like I said, the biggest city in the game. And It's not very highly populated, which is one thing that's kind of frustrating because it doesn't feel like you're in a city. It feels like you're just kind of in a small village, especially compared to other recent games that have shown us much larger cities in video games, such as The Witcher, which I know everybody talks about, oh, you compare it to The Witcher, that's so typical, but I mean, The Witcher did a good job of building an open world that felt like a real world, without it being, oh, I didn't know I could swing off this one, okay. Without it feeling uncomfortable to travel across in its size. What you see here, there's like what, 15 buildings in this town, and this is as I said before, like the biggest town in the game. It's really kind of disappointing. Oh, there's no swingy side on here. Oops, almost hurt myself, but I didn't because I can roll to avoid damage from certain falls. You know, if a fall is too high, then you will die even if you try to roll. But hey, what's up? Yeah, so I mean, there's citizens around and they kind of talk. Hey, what's up? They're too busy to respond to my bow. I need to show you guys somebody bowing back to me. Actually, let's go find that trapper. I know he won't. Oh no, I already did, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Never mind. The merchants and stuff will not bow back to you. The only people who will are like standard civilians that are just wandering around because they don't have any like set AI as to this is what they should be doing at all times. Whereas the merchants and stuff are always sitting in the same place waiting for you to come talk to them, which is another thing that's kind of lame, you know? Like, sure, I've played a lot of Skyrim and I'm used to how that game builds up its people. Like, Skyrim also had very small towns, but its people behaved realistically, so it sort of made up for the small amount of them, I think. See, like, that guy's busy hammering something, so he's not going to bow back. Are you going to bow back? You're busy poking your fire? Oh, no. See? Good day, my lord. See? They respond to you. I love that. That's great. When you rescue people, you can bow to them, and they'll bow back. It's just a little bit of thing that makes you feel a little bit more immersed in, you know, this medieval Japan setting. These guys are over here. Are they just drinking? Are they bathing? They're wearing fundoshi, the Japanese, like, bathing underwear or whatever it would be referred to as. But yeah, I'm really not satisfied with the towns and cities in this game. Very dissatisfied with them. Now, the wilderness in this game is gorgeous and amazing and stunning, and I love it, and I love exploring in it. It feels incredibly realistic in terms of its like geography and the detail of where different biomes are set, etc. Like, yeah, there are sort of microclimates where things switch a little bit too suddenly from one climate to another, but it's never so much that you feel taken out of the immersion. I guess we could talk about gear and progression on our way to the place that I actually want to go right now, because I want to show you something else about the world that annoys the crap out of me. So let's go this way, and I'll talk to you about the gear and progression. So in the game, you have multiple systems of gear, multiple systems of progression, etc. You're going to collect, see, like right there were flowers. You're going to collect resources in the world, and resources in the world are things like various variety of woods. You're going to find various metals, various cloth, and each one of these things are used to upgrade one type of gear. So by finding different kinds of cloth, you'll upgrade your armor sets. By finding metal, you'll upgrade your swords, and by finding wood, you'll upgrade your bows. Are these sakura? I think they are, right? Because like sakura start off white and then they turn pink as they age, right? Like as they get closer to... No, come back, boar! There we go, got him. Even though I don't need any more resources, I still like hunting in this game. I've always been a big fan of bow and arrows in video games. Any game that allows you to use a bow and arrow, I almost always do, even if it's got guns. I don't care, I just love using bows. But yeah, so the way that you collect armor sets is actually you have like 8 different armor sets, and each one is collected by completing a particular mission, and that's it. There's no buying armor sets and selling armor sets and looting armor sets. Nothing like that. You have your armor sets that are available throughout the game, and that's it. You can't change your shoulders or your skirt or your pants or your tunic or whatever. Every armor set is set, and that's it. But you have 3 slots for your armor. The only one that affects anything is your body armor. You can change your hat and your mask at will, though, and your hat and your mask don't have any effect on gameplay. They don't increase your armor rating or decrease it by taking it off. They don't give you any bonuses to your abilities like the armor sets do. The armor sets will like, oh, you can hit with arrows better with this set, and this other set is better for melee combat, so you'll do more melee damage and take less damage. Whereas the helmets and the masks and such all just are completely cosmetic. They can be changed at will, but they don't have any bonuses. So if I were to say, I want to wear my samurai gear, but I want to wear my favorite straw hat, like this, I still have the same benefits that I did before with the samurai gear with the samurai helmet. Nothing changes in that respect. How much? 2.5 kilometers. The swords in the game are the only weapon that you'll ever have. You'll never find other swords and change your swords for, oh, this sword does more base damage, and oh, that one's better, and oh, this one has defense increase or something. Your sword is the same sword you start the game with. It's the Sakai clan katana that everybody in your family has used for like generations or whatever. And instead, the way that you make your sword a little bit better is you can go to blacksmiths, give them iron, steel, gold, and they will upgrade the sword for you, which I don't know why gold is used to upgrade a sword. The only thing gold can be used on swords for is ornamentation, honestly, because it's such a weak metal, but I digress. See, here we have a farmstead, and this farmstead is actually pretty big, but again, it's just, you know, it's a plantation, basically. So, I mean, there's some nice locations around here. It looks nice, but there's not much of any social, there's no society here. It's just like one family's farm and that's it. I need to continue heading northeast to get over to Castle Kaneda. But you do get charms, and the charms are collected by finding fox dens. No, you can attach more charms to your character by finding fox dens. And the charms are collected through quests. You can get minor charms from side quests, or you can get major charms by finding the Shinto shrines across the game that are basically platforming challenges, which, you know, I like those. They're not excessively creative or anything, but I like platforming challenges, even if they're a little simple. More boars, but they're running from me, whatever, I'll leave them alone. And the charms will just give you special abilities. They might increase your melee damage, they might increase your stealth ability, that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not going to go up there because I don't want to get in a fight just right now. Actually, I could probably stealth these guys. Oh, did they know I'm here? Well, I mean, he sort of saw me, but he shouldn't have seen enough of me to... Nope, okay, he did. I didn't think they saw enough of me to follow me. Eep. I can actually get into another thing about combat that I'm a little annoyed by, and that is stance switching. So, stance switching, in order to actually switch your stances, you have to hold the R2 button for a little bit. You see how the menu comes up? You have to wait until it comes all the way onto the screen before you can change your stance. Because if you press the R2 and the X button, or whatever face button you're trying to press at the same time, before the stance menu comes all the way onto screen, it won't register as a stance switch. Instead, it'll register as you just pressing that face button alone, and you'll do whatever that face button was. So like I said, if you're in your anti-brute stance and you're trying to switch to your anti... and see, it's not doing it now because I'm not in combat. But if you're trying to switch to your anti-sword stance, if you don't hold R2 long enough, you'll press X without R2 registering, and you'll just jump while you're in the middle of combat. So not only did you not change your stances, but you've also jumped, which opens you up in the middle of a fight for free damage from your enemies, which is, of course, extremely annoying. So that's another big problem with the game's combat. I think they patched it to make it a little bit more reliable, but it's still not where I'd like it to be. Let's see, are these bad guys here? Nope, these are civilians. Okay, never mind. I can show you some of the stealth in a little bit. Hi. Yeah, you probably would be. So that's probably my second biggest complaint after the camera problems during combat. But like I said, the world itself is incredibly beautiful. I love just riding around and exploring and seeing the kind of stuff that they built in the world. I'm in Hyoshi, really? I probably need to just head straight north, honestly, at this point. No, still northeast. Okay, well, I guess I am in Hyoshi. Because it wasn't really in... Yeah. I really am disappointed by the cities that they've built in this game. Let's see. There shouldn't be any enemies here. This is a camp that I've cleared out, so I can just ride through this peacefully. The stealth in this game is very basic. There are a couple more tools than there are in, say, Assassin's Creed Origins or Odyssey when it comes to like stealth tools. Because Assassin's Creed Odyssey pretty much didn't have stealth tools, Origins or Odyssey for that matter. You just had run up and stab people or shoot them with your bow from a distance. Or you had stab them in the throat from behind. Those were your two options in stealth in the Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey games. This one you have, like I said, you have your wind chimes to throw to get enemies' attention. You have your firecrackers to get more enemies' attention, which, you know, is basically just the same thing, but sort of worse, honestly, because I don't typically find myself wanting a bunch of enemies in one area unless I'm trying to just get a whole bunch of enemies to get away from a particular area for whatever reason, and that just doesn't happen very often. See, like, this area looks a little bit exaggerated from what real life would look like, but it's beautiful, so it's fine. Let me clear the weather real quick. The flute here that you have can control the weather, so that's cool. It's obviously a little bit fantastic, but it's cool. Perfect. Here's some enemies. So this long grass that you're in here is how you hide from enemies. It's just like in Horizon Zero Dawn, where you have to hide in the red grass. If you don't hide in red grass in Horizon Zero Dawn, it doesn't matter what you're hiding in, it won't work for stealth. So I could sit here and say, let me throw not a black powder, let's throw a firecracker. See, everybody's curious about what that is now. So I could technically go up and get a multi-assassination. But it didn't work. I was trying to get a multi-assassination. But I guess you can see me doing more standard combat. You see that enemy, he's calling out his bow shots to his allies so that they can duck. But you can also set it to where you'll get a visual warning for bow shots, and that's how I have it set, because I'm so used to that from, you know, Star Wars or Assassin's Creed or whatever other games I might play. That's not my horse. So you can kill enemy horses, but you can't kill your own horse. It's kind of funny. But yeah, you have your firecrackers, you have your bells, and you also have your blowgun, which I would argue is probably a better stealth tool than a standard ranged weapon, because... Okay, let's see if I can stealth these guys. Because you have standard poison, and you also have hallucination poison. And the hallucination poison... Look, they're trying to hide from me too. Okay. The hallucination poison will cause your enemies to fight each other, which is always fun. So that's definitely a stealth weapon, because you don't want people to know you're there when you're doing it. End his suffering while his buddies are busy. And then I can poison him to death. What you doing? What you doing, guy? Now this is what I really love. This is what happens when you poison enemies. Yeah. pretty gruesome. So I'm very fond of doing that. I just forget most of the time that I have that blowgun because I'm so distracted with throw the thing, chase the guy, and then stab him in the throat. Like, here we go, I'm going to do that here. I'm not going to even throw the thing because he's far enough away from his buddies that he won't be noticed. Now, when you stab people in the grass, for the most part, they can still technically see you doing it. So you want to be careful where you do it. You're not perfectly visible, but you have to be careful. See, like, they saw me stabbing their buddy, so they're going to be careful. But I have the chain assassination, and that is the main purpose of your firecrackers. If your enemies get scared enough from seeing enough of their buddies die, or seeing their buddies die in a very gruesome way, they will run away in fear. This is not Kage. Where's Kage? Kage! Is that Kage? Something is wrong with my reins, with my bit and bridle. Huh. I swear my bit and bridle were blue, but whatever. So the stealth in this game, pretty standard, a little bit better than the Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins games, because I didn't really find those games to have done stealth very well. Odyssey did it a little better by having you have stealth abilities, but it still wasn't really good stealth gameplay, in my opinion. Oh no, we need the horse for this anyways. Okay, so here is one of the things I wanted to show about the open world that annoyed the crap out of me. So you see how I'm on this southern part of the world, right? I want to go further north into the next part of the world. Only I can't, because after you reach certain parts in the gameplay... There are enemies. Oh, they're standing on the bridge. Okay. You have these standoffs, and I love these standoffs. Basically, you hold triangle, wait for them to do a real attack, because they will try to feint. They will try to fake you out, like that. That time I let them fake me out. I screwed up pretty bad. Had to use some of my resolve to heal. Resolve is your, like... your force energy, basically. It allows you to do special techniques, and it also allows you to heal. It's similar to your focus meter in the Spider-Man PS4 game, actually. You can use it to heal or perform stronger attacks, and that's what the focus in Spider-Man did. Come back. See, he's blue. I knew he's blue. So once you reach a certain point in the game, you can no longer enter this area. So if I want to travel to the next major area of the game, let's say, actually, I'm going to show you. Let's say I change my waypoint to this city that's right on the other side, right? Now, it tells me, by the wind blowing in that direction, and the fact that it says I have 1.8 kilometers to get there, it tells me that the world is connected, and that I could get there by walking, or at least it implies that, but there's no way to do that. Unless you know a trick that I recently learned. So what you want to do in order to do this, because the game doesn't actually allow you to do it and it's annoying as crap, also because the castles are some of the most interesting locations, but you can never go back to them. They're only available during certain story sequences. What you want to do is get your explosive bow, make sure your horse's butt is like right up against the door, and if you can, you want to really try to make your horse's butt kind of clip through the door a little bit. But you go up to the front door of one of the castles, aim your explosive arrows right in front of yourself, and the horse will throw you off backwards. I didn't do it correctly there. Sorry, Kage. Didn't mean to scare the crap out of you like that, but that's how you do the glitch. Let's get it working this time. You have to, like, turn in place. It's a little complicated to get him to do. Let's see, I might be able to do it this time. Okay. Let's try it again. And you have limited explosive arrows, obviously, so you want to be careful. Sorry, Kage. Come on, horse. I'm sorry, dude. I promise. This is gonna work, guys. I promise. Let's get back over here. I know you're probably not enjoying this. There we go. Okay. No. Moved too far away that time. I'm for sure too far away after those last tries. I know that was too far away. Yeep. Come on. No. Come on, Kage. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So you do it like this. There we go. And that is how you get back into these areas you're not supposed to get into. See, I can't even go close enough to that box to open it. What the heck? How did that spawn there? Yeah, see? There's like an invisible barrier where this door is. That's how hard they want you to not re-enter these castles. which, like I said, is super lame because Japanese castles are really fun to explore, and it'd be nice if you could go back to these through an official means and not by glitching through a wall. But whatever. And this is what you have to do if you want to like run from one end of the island to the other. Kage, there you are, hiding behind the tree. Okay, this time I'm gonna make it work without so many tries, hopefully. Yes, okay, this should be fine. Yes, and see, in order to get through this castle, because there are gates halfway through it, you have to do it multiple times and use multiple explosive arrows to travel through this place. So it's just like, you have to feel bad for hurting your horse, even though it doesn't technically hurt the horse. And you have to waste all your explosive arrows. Just be nice if you could just officially go back here, especially since there are some really nice locations for photo mode. Like if I want to take photos here, like tell me this isn't a great place for photos. This long bridge, like that's awesome. That looks beautiful right there, right? It looks gorgeous. But you can't officially get back here for this. There's another place I want to show that is an important story location in the castle that I would love to be able to take photos in, but again, you have to glitch in order to get there again. Where is it at? Where is the lantern pool? Maybe I've already passed it. No, I think it's, okay, yeah, I think it's up here. Never mind. I haven't passed it yet. You'll see. But yeah, I really wish that you could just cross the island properly through an official means. I'm gonna need Kage to get me through this door. Kage, throw me through the door again. It takes 3 explosive, no, have I used 2 or have I used 3 already? I think I've used 2 so far. Thanks, Kage. Yeah, see right here. Like, this is one of the most beautiful locations in the game, and you can only get here by activating a glitch. How lame is that, right? With the bridge over top? Like, dude, come on, this is perfect. There's the castle there. You can go up inside the castle, explore it a little bit. There's not much to see inside. That's actually one thing I don't like about the urban environments. And again, you need another explosive arrow just to get through that gate. I think this is the only way to get across too, right? Yeah. So here I go needing another explosive arrow, and here I go needing to blow Kage up again, poor horse. So, turn him around. Come on, Kage. This one's not set deep into a corner like the other door was, so it's a little bit harder to get him to line up properly. Because the other one, the corner causes him to be a little bit more restricted in where he can move, so it's easier to get his butt to line up and clip through, whereas this one is much harder to get him to clip. Because you're not only on an incline, but without those, but without the corner forcing you into that one direction, then it's harder to get him to line properly, but I should be able to do it because I've been able to do it before. I've gotten back into that castle, and I want to do it again before I end this one, because I want you guys to see. And I got 1 explosive arrow left, so this is... Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, I got 1 explosive arrow left, so if I don't make it this time... no, then I'm not going to have another chance. There we go. Okay. See? Told you I could get in here. But yeah, so, I mean, you can go and see this castle, and you can actually climb to pretty high levels of it. But you can't do that officially, and it's such a pain. I sort of wish there was a little bit more detail to these indoor environments. They're a little bit basic. I know that maybe that's a little bit of a historical thing where Japanese people didn't have very, you know, they had modest homes, but it still leaves it uninteresting, even if it's realistic. So maybe that's one of the things they shouldn't have made too realistic, right? If they wanted to exaggerate the wilderness a little bit, they could have exaggerated how detailed building interiors were. At least I feel that way. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to show off that I just find annoying, because I like being able to just freely explore and go where I want and not have weird barriers where I have to fast travel across it in order to get to places. But yeah, so I guess that's for the most part what I wanted to talk about. I've had a good time playing this game. I haven't played any other like AAA $60 games this year, but there's not really much that I was interested in this year. I would say probably the only other $60 game that I was really curious to play that came out this year was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and I don't think that would be as good as this one because that one seems kind of standardized to what Dragon Ball Z games were. It's basically a recent Dragon Ball Z game, but open world as opposed to being, a stage-based or a fighting game. But yeah, I think that's all I have to talk about with this game. I guess I could show some of the more interesting locations, but other than that, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. So, good game, 8 out of 10. It's just minor annoyances all over the place. The camera, the stance switching during combat, the good stealth, better than Assassin's Creed recently, but still not very impressive. And the world just not being quite what I wanted from an open world medieval Japanese game. For that reason, I'm still sort of hoping that we get an Assassin's Creed game set sometime during medieval Japan, because with Assassin's Creed, they pretty much have to give you cities. Even if it's an open world where most of it is wilderness, like the recent games. Obviously, Assassin's Creed is very much into urban environments, so I'm still sort of hoping that Assassin's Creed will do that. Or, better yet, I'd love to see, personally, Assassin's Creed set in medieval Korea or China. But that's just personal. Japan, interesting, but I would say that medieval Korea is most interesting out of those three major kingdoms, and medieval China is like second interesting for me. But if they go make an Assassin's Creed in Japan, I'll still be satisfied. Be a little bit less unique, especially now that we have this, and we also have games like Sekiro and stuff like that, but they could still make it and still make it good. But for now, I think I'm pretty satisfied. Like I said, solid 8 out of 10. Combat's mostly great, stealth is mostly great, exploration is mostly great, story is mostly great. I didn't talk too much about the story, but the story is great. I just don't want to spoil anything when it comes to that. Progression is pretty good. I still kind of want more of a classic, Skyrim or Assassin's Creed Odyssey actually did it pretty well. The armor system where you can mix and match pieces that you like. Maybe a little bit more access to different weapons, not necessarily restricted to katana. But yeah, this is definitely a good base for a new series, and I can't wait to see what they do with it in the future. I hope that we will get a sequel to this game and that it will fix some of the issues I've had so far personally. I'd even be happy with some DLC if it gave us like, oh, you can go to Kyoto or Tokyo or any other major mainland Japanese city. But I don't see them making DLC for this game. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Thanks for coming and viewing, and I hope you guys have a good day.